Hello and welcome to Down to Watch, the podcast that asks, are you down to watch? And what we always find here is pop culture talk. I'm your host, Kahmeela, and most of the time we review movies, TV, and music. But every so often I get a really special guest to come on and just chop it up a bit. And today's special guest is Pittsburgh's golden boy, David Conrad.
I have dark hair. My hair is dark.
That is like the name that I always...
Just like my heart.
That's what everybody in Pittsburgh anyway.
There we go.
It's just like they start off with David Conrad, Pittsburgh's golden boy.
Charlie Humphrey is the golden boy, although he's 60 now, but he's still golden. Yeah.
Well, stay gold, pony boy. You have one job, just stay gold.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
How is your day going so far?
Love it. I love the snow. It's so nice to see snow, and you hear it at night, and everything's quiet when you wake up. Love that.
You're a snow baby?
I just have always enjoyed it. Always enjoyed it.
And I'm assuming that's just kind of ingrained because of Pittsburgh, where you grew up and all that.
Yeah, it was the great opportunity of maybe school would be canceled, but it just was. We lived on a hill. We had a great steep hill that I grew up on, and we could sled down it, or we'd take old skis and nail like a bunch of 2x4s, one going sideways, and we'd make a little seat out of it.
Interesting.
Boy, you could fly on those things.
I have never been sledding.
Oh.
And I'm from Ohio, so it's not like I...
Just cross the park. You could go to the other side of Frick Park. Do it.
Yeah, there's just something about it that just frightens the hell out of me. So, so obviously you are from Pittsburgh, born and bred.
Mm-hmm.
And so what... I don't know a lot about your childhood.
Sure. I grew up in a little house in Edgewood, right on the border of Swissvale, and 2 brothers, and mom and dad, and a little sad dog. No, actually, we did have we had a bunch of dogs, a lot of cats. We always had tons of cats.
Really?
Animals. We had snakes, gerbils. We had a raccoon one summer. Yeah, my parents were really great about having animals, and we loved to have them.
So you have 2 brothers. Where do you fall in line?
I'm the youngest, yeah.
Are you? The baby?
Yeah.
And were you spoiled?
Not really. I was just kind of left to my own devices, more or less.
By the time they got to you, it was
they were kind of done. Yeah.
So where did you go to high school?
Kiski Prep. I went to Woodland Hills for a year when it first started. My freshman year was the first year Woodland Hills came into existence. And the school at the time was kind of a mess because they just didn't know what they were doing, how to put it together. And I was kind of a mess at that age, and 2 didn't combine well. So I applied to a bunch of schools, and the one that gave us the most money was a prep school out in Salzburg, and I ended up going to a boarding school for 3 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, what is that?
Crazy.
What is that like? Does that give you a new semblance of independence?
It's a shock treatment, It really is like being thrown into water and trying to find out if you can swim. Mm-hmm. For me, the first year was incredibly difficult and really kind of heart-rending. And I think that's, for anyone, it's a tough experience. And for any parent who sends a child to a school like that, I think the first little while is hard to stomach. But I thank the lucky stars they took me in.
Yeah.
Because I think the idea that the people repeat again and again of needing kind of mentorship and having strong figures in your life, especially if you're a boy, to have a strong male in your life. Mm-hmm. You should have strong females too. But if you don't, I did have a strong mother. If you don't have a real father figure, a real kind of person who's going to hold you to task, but also reassure you, I was so lucky to get that in boarding school.
Okay, so...
Really lucky, yeah.
Oh, wow. So you've kind of found that it was just more strict and just a little more a semblance of...
Yeah, strict, I mean...
A regimen? Is that...
What's the word? I mean, a boarding school, yes, would be more strict than I guess living in your own parents' home, but it's the having to make up a world by yourself when you're 15, 16, 17. Mm. It's kind of an interesting experience, and the way that you come to depend on the people around you, the guys around you, and the way you learn to sort of make up a self or find a self is kind of it's a great experience. I mean, it's not for everybody, but I'm still very close to a lot of guys I went to school with, and I love the school. I'm still close to a lot of the teachers I had there. Some of the best teachers I ever had were my high school teachers. Was
it a weird shift when you would come back home?
No, it was fantastic. I mean, you were set free into the land of beauty and fun and parties and girls, and you'd see them for like 48 hours once a month, and it was like, oh my God, the joy of getting out of the school and being able to go back literally for 36 hours. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I've ever had more fun in my life. I mean, to come home and go see your friends and hook up with some folks from Alderdice or Ellis or Winchester or whatever, and just run around and have a great time. Which basically meant like borrow somebody's boombox and sit in Mellon Park and dance, right? I mean, that's all it was, literally.
Did you break dance? Were you a break dancer,
No, I
David?
wasn't. No, I came of the sort of age of like the Clash and the English Beat and Duran Duran. And all
Okay,
that was kind of my thing.
All right,
I was a teenager.
So what I'm envisioning is David with like the Don Taylor,
totally,
with the headband,
the big long trench coat and the scarves and the long scarves. Yep.
Oh my God, I would really appreciate it if you'd show me one of those photos.
I don't have any with me, but I'm sure there's some hidden somewhere. Yeah.
So you graduate from high school, and then you go to.
I went to Brown University, and then I loved being in New England. I really was, I was one of those kids like so many of us were or are. Was like, oh my God, get me the hell out of here. And I didn't grow up in the Steel Valley, but I grew up on the edge of it. Mm. And my neighbors were all losing their jobs in, the late 70s, early 80s. And my dad lost his job, and it was a rough time. I mean, we weren't smack in the middle of it. I mean, I didn't live in Homestead or Braddock, where people, I think, it was like being where the bomb dropped. Mm-hmm. But you definitely felt it, and you couldn't put a word to it about. Everyone was scared. Everyone was worried, unemployed. I mean, it was a bad time to be in Pittsburgh, and the impulse of a young kid is get me the hell out of here, right? Let me go someplace where the lights are shining, and you internalize it, right? It becomes, oh, it's Pittsburgh, or oh, it's this place, rather than oh, it's a situation. Mm-hmm. And it took me years to figure out, like, coming back and realizing, Pittsburgh's fantastic. It just was, I lived in a time of sort of economic chaos. So yeah, I went to Brown, was there 5 years, took a year off, got a degree in history, did a lot of theater, but didn't major in it, which I regret. And then goofed off for like 2 years, traveling around the country, messing around, being an idiot, working a little in Pittsburgh, working in other places. And then the people who I admired the most as actors had gone to these drama schools that I remembered loosely. And I said, Laura Linney went to Juilliard, and Tim Nelson did. And so I applied, and by some miracle of nature, I got a really good scholarship. And I mean, the gift for me is I went to 3 great schools, and I almost didn't pay a dime.
Wow!
Like I was very lucky.
When did the acting bug hit you?
The day I walked into Brown. I mean, honestly, I'd done a couple little things. My wonderful English teacher at Kiski, Mrs. Gray, Madeline Gray, who still teaches in St. Louis right now. She runs the Burroughs School. She's the best, the powerhouse. Daughter of Russian immigrants, could still speak Russian, and her father had hands the size of like a tiger. But she would sort of push me towards, maybe you should do this. We're going to do this Ibsen play. You should play the lead. I'm the swimmer. I've never done anything like this. So, but it wasn't until I got to Brown, and I did an audition in like a real house with 900 seats, and the second it happened, I can still remember doing the audition for Our Town, and the director, Don Wilmuth, standing up during the audition and looking at me. And I knew, I went, oh, he's looking at me because there's something going on. Doggy, come here.
Just like...
And then,
No.
And then, the first day I was there. Yeah. Okay,
so, I joke about you being, Pittsburgh's golden boy or whatnot, but that's one of the things that's kind of like in your core is that, Pittsburgh, you went away for a while, and, you mentioned that, you couldn't wait to leave, but you got this newfound appreciation for Pittsburgh in itself, and it's like something that's really important to you to try to make sure that Pittsburgh is as great as it can be.
Yeah, I felt as the years went by, I don't know, every zealot's got a conversion story, right? And I guess for me it was the fear and the anger of wanting to leave, and who I blamed it on, either my family or the town. And then you leave, and you learn things, right? And then I had one teacher at Kiski, his name was Tomas Szilagyi, who's Hungarian, a real lefty, a real socialist. And when I went to college, I was like, oh, Tom was teaching me this stuff, and I didn't know it. And then I got to college, and I took a lot of economics, sort of American history economics classes, and so many of them were about the collapse of the Industrial Revolution and the United States dependency on that, and economic history in the United States, history, blah, 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 choices this country's made. And it all started to suddenly kind of dawn on me that so much of that was centered around Pittsburgh or tested in Pittsburgh, or the questions were asked in Pittsburgh. Unions started in Pittsburgh. Workers' rights, the coal unions and the steel workers' unions. Ladies' garments unions were New York, but they were also powerful in Pittsburgh. But and I started to learn a kind of oppositional history, and the idea that because a thing has failed does not mean it deserved to fail, right? And that maybe there were forces in the sheer way that we look at progress that are maybe not so good. And I really started to kind of take a longer look at Pittsburgh's history, industrial history, labor history. And I just kind of blew me away that my hometown, literally a mile and a half from where I was born, was really the heart of it. The Rankin furnaces and the Homestead furnaces, Duquesne. And I just became obsessed with talking to people who'd worked in steel mills. So when I came back in 1988, 89, and I worked for 6 months with a guy named Mark Francis, who had worked with the Homestead local and the organizers there, one of whom was David Soul's brother, right? The guy from Starsky and Hutch.
Okay.
And a guy named Ron Wiesen, who was this crazy radical steelworkers union leader. So the local in Homestead was a really confrontational union. The local at E.T. in Braddock was not. But they were very, let's go along. And so the old argument was Homestead's mill was shut down, even though it was more profitable than E.T., because the union was such a pain in the ass. Whereas E.T. wasn't Edgar Thompson. They were like, we'd do anything for the company, so they kept it open. I mean, that's the urban legend. But so I got to talk to a lot of these guys, and we got to go through the mill, and I literally walked through it, with these dudes who had worked there. And it was as if a bomb had gone off or a plague had gone through, and you'd go to the lockers and the clothing would spill out, and their magazines were still there, their lunch pails.
Wow.
They just literally walked out the door. And then I got to talk to some of the people who'd worked at the mills, and I got to talk to their parents and grandparents who, at that time were in their 80s, some of them, who'd literally been born at the turn of the century, So their knowledge of Pittsburgh history was astounding. And I just, I became a kind of convert to sort of the sense that labor builds wealth, and that wealth isn't about a company that makes money and then trickles it down to buyers. I just thought it was a complete load of shit. And I started to think that this stuff that is created by people's work is done by labor. And when labor could be a janitor, labor could be the person who handles the parking down at William Penn Hotel. Labor could be a metal worker or a carpenter. And it doesn't even have to be organized labor. What I mean is the act of labor is that which sort of makes the majority of the wealth in this country. And when they say small businesses make up America's economy, that's kind of what it is. And I just started to think to myself that to me was central to the way I looked at history. And when I realized that Pittsburgh kind of was the center of that, I mean, you could say Detroit, Chicago too, but really Pittsburgh, I don't know, it's just always stuck with me. And also people are really nice here. And I look back at all the kind people who raised me and super tolerant people who put up with me when I was a kid and taught me swimming and babysat for me and taught me how to play baseball. And I just looked at it and went, what a wonderful place. And the shit it had suffered through when I was just about being a teenager. You come back years later and you watch the progress happening. You watch development happening and companies moving here and people looking at the communities of Pittsburgh and saying, oh, look at these ideal shapes, these ideal neighborhoods, the size of them. We could repopulate them. We could move in. And I don't mean so much gentrification, although of course that's going to happen. But I mean that the sense of the way Americans look at sort of what is comprehensible in terms of a neighborhood.
Right.
We physically kind of form those because of the geography here. So Bloomfield's just a certain size. Garfield's a certain size. And they're side by side, but they're separate neighborhoods. Millvale's a certain size. Homestead's a big thing, but it's a neighborhood. Braddock is its own little peninsula right there. And to me, I think millennials, for lack of a better word, I'm starting to hate that word, but people who are sort of sub 35 look at, for them, a comprehensible sort of democratic structure is a city and lower. I don't think they look at states and the Fed and go, okay, I can wrap my head around that. I think they look at, okay, that I can see could be something we could, through voting, through buying, and through our work, we could make that work. I think they can take over something like a city. I don't think
Interesting.
Yeah, in my head, that's what I kind of look at.
Yeah.
They look at Millvale and they go, okay, we could take this church, build it into a town center, take this other church, make it into a music center, rebuild this building, maybe rent some apartments in it, clear these lots, turn them into an urban farm, get some cooperation from like the town council, maybe get a restaurant and a coffee shop, and there we are. And maybe, hey, let's get our library working again. And they did it.
Yeah.
So that's Millvale. There's lots of other things going on, but that was literally like a handful of people got together and went, hey, let's work together. I kind of think that that's the way Americans look at what they're able, what's achievable. I mean, sure, plenty are like, hey, let's do this with the state, but I think that's what companies think like. I think that's what business people and politicians. Like more for
states.
Well, they just think bigger, right?
Right.
Economically and all that. I think most folks, think like, okay, what could I do in my town? And yeah.
Well, yeah, just a little something we can wrap our brains around a little bit better. Just like, yes, I can see this. I know what to expect in my city, in my town, in my neighborhood. Yeah. Which the neighborhood and the boroughs and that whole situation here in Pittsburgh is just something all on its own that I hadn't experienced in my life, and just like how, and not as a shock, but just like the pride that comes in with like each neighborhood, or just like the distinction within each neighborhood. Yeah, I come from Toledo, Ohio, and it's not like, it was just like a really big shock to me. It's like every time you cross the street, you're getting into a new borough here. And it's just like, it's Toledo. Whatever. Either it's Toledo or mommy. But
there's a crazy local pride and a sort of local, I mean, really, I hate to use the word balkanization because it gives the Balkans a bad name because they get along better than we do. But, you can get some serious animosity and then straight up racism between certain neighborhoods. I mean, the neighborhood I grew up more or less in, Swissvale, pretty much was a white working class, for lack of a better word, ghetto.
Really?
That fought Rankin, which was a black neighborhood, and Wilkinsburg, which was on the other side. And Edgewood and Wilkinsburg didn't get along because Wilkinsburg was predominantly black and Edgewood was predominantly white.
This is when you were growing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know for a fact that there were positions of power in Swissvale that actively, tried to keep the sort of borders between Rankin and Swissvale clear, if you want lack of a better word, in the 70s. Yeah. There were riots in Steel Valley over the mergers, the merger into Steel Valley, which was the combination of a predominantly African-American school and the white school. And, there was a guy who was my spinning teacher in L.A. This great guy. Fabulous dude. What was his name? It was Wiley or something like that. It was a really strange, sort of beautifully odd, sort of Western name. But he grew up in Homestead. And he asked me where I was from, and I said Pittsburgh. He goes, "Oh, where'd?" And I asked him, "Where'd you go to school?" And he said Steel Valley. And he looked at me, and I went, "Oh, I'm from Edgewood." And in a split second, I can see it in his eyes, like two different worlds. Right. And also, he was, mid-50s, late 50s. And I thought he went to Steel Valley when it started, which means he was spat on, he was yelled at. I'm sure of it. So, there's definitely a dark side to Pittsburgh's sort of particular neighbors in history. Oh, history, yeah. Yeah. But, it's a double-edged sword for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, we'll lighten the mood a little bit.
I know, talk, God. No, I've worked on TV and silly commertal stuff. Yeah,
that's what you're here for. Just to, we're just gonna lighten up a little bit. So you've gotten into Juilliard.
Oh yeah.
And what is that program like? I don't know anything about Juilliard.
Juilliard was this high art music school started by Mr. Juilliard. And it for a while was the most highly endowed, prestigious music school, maybe in the top 5, 10 in the world. I would say it probably still is, but back then it was.
I imagine a tighter version of Fame.
Well, Fame is a performance art school. Juilliard is a music school.
Okay.
So there's dancers and actors at Juilliard, but there are only 100 of them.
Okay.
There's only 80 actors and there's maybe 100 dancers. There's thousands of musicians. So you go to the school and you're kind of tucked in a corner on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
And the rest of it is all music all the time. And that's where it pulls the weight. That's where the money comes from. Those are what the donors are there for.
Are you a musician at all?
Oh, not at all. But it was thrilling to be around so much music all the time. So you kind of get poured into this giant musical world, and you just happen to be studying theater inside this. Everywhere you go, there's people practicing. Every room, you can always hear piano, violin, something playing, cello.
That's gotta feel so alive just to walk through that type of energy all day, every day.
Thrilling, yeah, absolutely thrilling. And some of my floor mates and classmates are now prestigious players for the Cleveland Symphony, Pittsburgh, L.A. My office mate, I worked in the student affairs office. My desk mate was Audra McDonald.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Audra and I were like, hey, how many hours you work this week? Could you go down to the post office and give me some?
Good grief. Yeah. So what did you want? Did you want stage? Did you want TV? Did you want film?
I just wanted a job. I just wanted some work. Yeah.
What was your first gig once you graduated?
I didn't. I was.
You did not.
Well, I didn't graduate, but I. After my first year, I was sitting in the Juilliard Theater watching Midsummer Night's Dream. The fourth years were doing it. They call them 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth year, those are the seniors. They're doing. It's a 4-year program, which is unlike any other drama program. Most are 2 or 3. So I'm watching this, and I'm sitting next to a woman, and we're talking about the show. And turns out she's the head of casting at ABC. And she says, "Would you come down next year in the fall and be a reader for me?" And I'm like, "What's that mean?" She goes, "When you're free, come down. When you're not in a space between classes, come down, ring the bell, tell them you're here. And what we'll do is we're auditioning people, and you're the person they're reading with." Oh. So for a year, I basically had a great experience of reading with all these people. Huh. Some of whom were super famous now and were. And I learned about what it is to audition, which was cool. And then at the end of the year, she said, "Hey, I'm producing this little teeny movie up in Albany. Would you be in it?" And I was like, "Yeah, thanks."
What was the movie?
Paid me $10,000. It never came out.
Oh, really?
It was made by this guy who was optioned his best friend's book, and they filmed it and had a blast. And we shot it in Albany, New York, and had a really good time. I learned a lot and made a little money, which I promptly spent the next year. And but no, I didn't. I spent 3 years at Juilliard, and then I left. I missed my 4th year, which was a mistake. I should have stayed. But I did a play in Pittsburgh. I did it at Tom Stoppard's Arcadia, and then I went and did Relativity, which was the first show I ever worked on, 95, 96 in L.A., which was. I had everything handed to me on a silver platter, and I didn't even know it. I was working on ABC with the guys who just made My So-Called Life and 30-something, and I was their lead actor in a TV show. And we got great coverage and bad ratings. Everybody loved the show, writing-wise, but nobody watched it. Or the ratings we got were the first indication that what people called real ratings weren't going to happen for anybody. That it was just the beginning of Fox and Warner Brothers, and before they became together. What was it? The WB and then the
LCW?
Yeah, they were separate then, right?
Right.
And that was the beginning of people realizing that, okay, ratings-wise, no one's watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Right. That's because they didn't know how to count them. Right? When they tried to cancel it, that online thing.
Yeah, it's like, holy search not there. What's not happening, guys?
It was the beginning of the industry realizing that what they were counting didn't work. Mm-hmm. But we got sacrificed because we were under the old system.
Well, you've been in a lot. You've done a lot.
I haven't really, actually. I've done very little for some reason. It just I got lucky in a few things that lots of people have watched. But the amount of work I've done is way less than I should have or could have. So
that you should have ever could have. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the first thing that I saw you in was Wedding Crashers.
Yeah, the whole world's seen that movie. But it's literally like an international film. It's crazy.
Well, that known to me, but I did watch Roswell when it was on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Well, I was in disguise, right? I had a Southern accent.
but you know, I did.
Yeah.
I was new to Roswell was on when I was new to Pittsburgh, I think.
Yeah.
So you know, I didn't know the legend that was
that's right.
David Conrad at that point. I just thought, you know, oh, it's this guy who and you know, apparently you've done a lot of villain work.
You know, I either play like an annoyingly pleasing and kind husband, or I play a complete asshole. There's never been anything in the middle. So I'm either a complete sop, like the guy in Wedding Crashers, or I'm like, hey, honey, sure, whatever. Let me go clean the bathroom now.
Was that your 5 years on Ghost Whisperer?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. Ghost Whisperer, I was just like, hey, babe, anything you want. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, it seems like, and like you know, when you got here, I have never seen an episode fully yet.
Yeah.
But I'm on my way there. I in tribute to you, I'm going to go ahead and watch all of Ghost Whisperer.
Well, you know, don't.
But it seems like you were half naked a lot in the first episode.
A lot of topless. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know, what was it? CBS.
No, ABC, was it? No, it was CBS. Right. CBS,
okay,
sorry.
so I guess there's not going to be a lot that I'm going to be embarrassed.
No, it's no. Yeah.
I just get to like a certain season. It's like, I can never talk to you again, Dave, or look you in the eye.
No, they did. The only time they ever really tried to bend the rules was I did a shot in a shower, and then I was putting on my jeans, and the director was this guy who had a lot of guts, and he did a perfect cut where you kind of see the pants. You're like, did I just see Dave's ass? But you couldn't swear to it. Yeah, but that's later in the season.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
I am on watch for that. So you have a blog.
I used to. I don't really write on it anymore.
As of June this year?
Yeah, it's
you
been
don't
a while.
write of it anymore?
Yeah, I don't know.
It says in your bio it says you wanted to be a writer.
Yes, that's true. I just doing it through the sort of social internet's web kind of discourages me now, and I just kind of do it on my own.
Well, I was looking through some of the comments.
The dogs don't even like it.
I was looking through some of the last comments on the last post, and people miss you.
I guess, yeah, but I mean, you know, you just get a lot of sort of strange things happening, and you know, one of the posts I wrote was about a community in Connecticut and about friendship, and it's become like a platform for people to write about addiction recovery, which is great. I'm glad people are recovering from their addictions, but like,
that's
nothing
not
to say about it. Yeah.
Well, you do have a real beautiful way of writing.
Oh, thank you.
I read a couple of entries, as well as, you know, there was a letter that you wrote several years ago about how nice people are here in Pittsburgh. Or an article in Post Gazette.
Sure.
And I do really like your writing style.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
It's poetic without trying. Although I don't know what your process is like.
You know, my favorite poet is a guy named Phil Levine, and you read Levine's poems, and they sound like someone talking to you. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the lines and kind of take them apart, and you go, oh, God, wow. Like there's internal rhymes, and there's balances and meters and all the stuff, right, you learn about. But what I loved about it was it sounded like someone's voice. Mm-hmm. Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson sounds that way, right? Although she's, you know, much more formal. But she sounds like someone speaking to you. And that's what I love about theater, which was the living voice. I mean, August Wilson writes poetry, but it sounds like anybody. So if I ever wanted something from writing, it was to try to bring out a voice rather than a form.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I guess some things you do naturally. Like some people play piano.
Right.
Some people run. I just always scribbled. You know, I was a kid. I used to write my parents. I'd borrow my mother's typewriter, and I'd write a newspaper. It was the newspaper of Christmas or like my birthday or something.
Yes.
And I'd write like stuff. And there'd be like dad's side and mom's side. And then I'd write things for the cats. I always had like the
That's
pet
adorable.
snooze. I don't know if my parents have any of those left.
That's amazing.
I loved seeing it printed, and I loved seeing like, if there was anything in my life I ever wanted to be, it was a newspaper man.
Really?
You know that word even, like the old newspapers where people...
I'm going to blow this story right off, man.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Roll, stop the presses or anything, you know, that kind of thing. There's nothing I thought was cooler than the idea of being a reporter.
Well, we'll have to get you like a nice fedora with
exactly
press pass, like right in the hat.
Well, a friend of mine did a big fundraiser once where they had Jerry Cooney, who was a heavyweight boxer. He fought Ali and got his ass kicked, but he was a pretty good boxer, and he was part of this thing it was a fundraiser for athletes that had suffered concussions. This is some years ago or fighters that had gotten punch drunk. And he did a fundraiser where a guy got in the ring with him, and for a certain amount of money, you could box Jerry Cooney, right? And he could kill you.
To pay this, you pay to box.
Oh, it was incredible, yeah. And he would just run. There was this huge man in his 50s, and he's dancing around the ring. You couldn't even touch him. But I went as a newspaper reporter, and I had the hat and the thing and the press. It's like one of my happiest days. Yeah.
One of the last things that you wrote about was you did this AIDS life cycle.
Oh yeah.
It was like 600 miles.
Yeah.
You rode your bicycle.
Yeah, in a week we rode from San Francisco to L.A. A good buddy of mine runs hotels in San Francisco, and he's a big mover in the. It's the AIDS Life Center in San Fran, and there's one in L.A. I think there's in several cities, but they're really remarkable organizations. And he's like, "Man, come do it with me." So I signed up, raised some money, and got to ride. The roads are shut down, and they got people waving, and there's food stops every 20 miles, and every 20 miles there's like a crazy band.
Okay.
Like the most ridiculous places. You're out in the middle of nowhere. On a 3,000-foot peak in the desert.
Okay.
And there's 20 guys like with amps playing ridiculous music and dresses and cheering you on.
So it's like Mad Max.
It's the greatest. It's the gay Mad Max, which maybe is being redundant, but really. But it was really moving, and to see people who shouldn't be on a bicycle. I mean, I don't know how in God's name they were going up some of these hills, and they did it. To see older couples where somebody's definitely suffering, they're in late care in their life and pushing each other up hills. Like literally, I rode behind these two guys, and his partner literally kept his hand like just in his lower back and was pushing him up this hill. It was just no small feat on a bicycle.
Right.
Yeah, just day after day, things like that.
How did you break down, you break down the miles?
Oh, they do it. Yeah, you don't do anything. All you do is get on a bike. They tell you where to go.
No, I mean like your day-to-day. Like how many miles did you...
About 90 every day.
Really?
Yeah, we did a couple hundreds. We had one short day. We had 140 day. Most were like average 90, 100 miles. Which is, once you get used to it, it's a joy.
How much training did you do beforehand?
I've been riding most of my life. I raced at the Brown Cycling Club before it was a team, before it was a club. I mean, before it was a team, it was a club. And it was just a bunch of goofballs on bicycles. And so I just started racing then, and the bug got me, and I just loved it. I'm just too big. Like, I'm too heavy. I'm too tall, right?
Okay.
Like, bikers tend to be much
smaller,
thinner. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I could never be any good, but I did love it. And I still like it. It's still one of my favorite ways to travel.
I love the fact, like, your interests, like, just span so many different ways. Like, you're an athlete, so to speak.
Yeah.
But for the most part, more than most.
Sure.
Your intellect with the history and writing and literature, and performer.
Play no music though, which breaks my heart. It's a
That's
great
the one
failing.
thing. That's the one thing that you can't do. You can't have it all, Dave.
Failing. Yeah, I sit there and I'm like, God, I'm such an idiot that I never learned piano or guitar.
No instruments whatsoever. How about singing? Can you sing?
I do love to sing. Yeah, I love. Sometimes I'll sing with my friend Mark. He's a sort of nightclub performer. Mm-hmm. I'll sing with him. I'll sing with Storm once in a while. She lets me sing.
That's
with her
right.
Occasionally, yeah, Storm Large. There's a couple songs I can kind of squeak in with her. And then my friend Jim, actually, before I got here, Jim and I were singing over at his apartment about 3 blocks from here. Just sit up and sing Neil Young songs, actually. James Taylor and Neil Young. Pretty easy. You can't really sing a Neil Young song badly.
I guess not. No.
Yeah.
James Taylor. I think the only one I know by James Taylor, if this is right, is Every Day.
The only one I really know is Fire and Rain,
okay.
and which I love. And anything that's Carole King. I'm a big Carole King fan.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful.
You like the classics. You like the old folk
and
style.
Standards. I love jazz standards, and like Skylark and April in Paris, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a jazzer.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, it seems like you're also pretty across the board where your musical taste lies, because obviously there's the '80s.
Well, again,
punk
jazz, right? Well, yeah,
and jazz.
Yeah. I mean, the jazz scene in Pittsburgh is one of the greatest ever, and
right.
You get to hang out. Like tonight, later on, I'll go down to. There's a bar called the Savoy, and Roger Humphreys, who's a drummer, will play, and Roger will be there, and Nelson Harrison will be there, and piano player Howie, and just listen to those guys.
Nice.
They teach you more about Pittsburgh history, jazz history. It's amazing.
Right. Speaking of that, like the bummer with the with James Street.
Oh yeah,
Tavern, Gastropub.
Tavern
when I
crime,
moved here.
Yeah. That's too bad.
Shutting down.
Yeah.
And it's
Let me guess. Maybe it's going to become condos. maybe they'll
I
get
don't
it.
know. I don't know. That seems really out of character for for a lot of the
taking tough neighborhoods and gutting them and turning them into expensive condos.
Yeah, with like some storage
Oh yeah,
unit
it'll be
condos.
Guardian. It'll be a very small Guardian.
Yes,
Yeah.
tiny Guardian.
Tiny Guardian.
Okay, I totally forgot. Like,
What?
You are part of the Marvel universe.
Oh my God, yeah, I was. Yeah. And stupidly turned down a second season, which was really dumb.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I wanted to work for Badudo. They offered me a second season. They didn't give me a raise, so I was kind of like, bullshit. And then Bill got elected, and I thought, oh yeah, you know what? I could work for the city of Pittsburgh. How cool is that? And I really thought they were going to hire me, but 6 months later they didn't. So, kind of a bad bet. Yeah.
So I okay.
I know.
I don't remember. I remember you being on there. I remember being super stoked about it. I did enjoy your character, Ian Quinn. I think it was. I don't recall if he was killed off because I stopped watching after.
He wasn't.
Okay.
I was supposed to be.
That's right. Okay.
And then they decided not to. And I got a phone call. Well, we were shooting the last episode, and of course it was going to be long because they had 1,000 things to do. And Bill Paxton, God rest his goddamn soul.
That's
what a
right.
wonderful guy.
That's yeah.
What a good guy. Tons of fun. And so we're sitting in the bar, and the first AD walks in, and we're like, "Were we late? What's wrong?" And he's like, "No, hey, you know what? Just want to let you know the last scene's going to be different, Dave. You're not going to get eaten by the thing." And I was like, "Oh, really?" It goes, I'm like, which is good news because you're alive.
All right.
So, and Ruth Nagar, amazing actress, who got nominated for an Academy Award.
Wait a minute.
She was in that film. Yeah, she was in that. She played the other bad person. The other.
That's
evil.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually I stopped watching after you were on there anymore.
In a weird kind of way, I'm still alive because I had a jet, right, and it was the special jet, and the agents stole it, but they keep calling it the Quinn jet. And on the latest, not the latest Avengers, but the one before, where they all got together and the Hulk was there, and Mr. What's his name? Tall, small. Mr. He's little and then he's big.
Oh, Ant-Man?
Yeah, Ant-Man. So Paul Rudd,
Rudd.
Who's a Pittsburgh fan. So in that episode, that one where, Paul falls onto the airplane?
Yes.
What movie is that? In one of the scenes, they go, Jeremy, do you have the Quinn jet? Or not Jeremy, Arrow, right? And what's his face? Jeremy Renner.
Oh, it's like is it the second Avengers, I guess?
He's flying the Quinn jet. So...
You shut your filthy mouth right now.
There's a window there still.
Wow, there is still there.
Yeah.
There's still hope, man.
Still hope, yeah.
Oh my God.
No, it was really stupid.
But are you, because you're kind of a geek as well.
I do love that. I do love that world.
Yeah, you like all that stuff. I see how your eyes like when certain things happen.
Yeah.
So like how fucking geeked were you to be?
I wasn't even, I was in New York and I'd flown out to LA to, I don't know what I was doing, but my buddy Dilip and I were hanging out, and he goes, "Hey, I have to go to an audition. Do you want to come?" We go to Culver City. He's auditioning for a different role, and I'm in there, and the casting agent walks out and goes, "Conrad, I didn't know we didn't call you." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just visiting." Like, "Well, do you want to read for this?" And I'm like, not for, luckily, the role my buddy was reading for. I said, "Well, sure, what the hell?" They gave me the part, flew me from Pittsburgh to LA to do this, and I'm sitting there going, I'm on the top of the world. I'm living in Pittsburgh, and I'm filming for Marvel in Culver City. And, I guess when you finally get handed something, you're so stupid, you go, "Oh, no, don't worry."
I'm not Pittsburgh's golden boy at all.
So, it was dumb. It's really dumb.
That's
I should
okay.
have kept that job.
That's okay.
Great people. The Whedon, not Josh, but his brother.
Jeb?
Yeah, nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Jeb's wife is super cool, whose name I can't remember either, but she was an awesome person. Yeah, really great crew. Clark Gregg, it always comes from the top, right? Like, the person who's the lead always sets the tone, and Clark was just decent to everyone and kind, and, did his off-camera, knew his lines. When the head guy does that, when the number one on the call list does that, everybody falls into line.
That's awesome. I don't recall. Were you on the same time as J. August Richards?
Was I? God, you know what?
I think it was like Deathlock, was that?
Yeah, he and I were in a scene together. I put his leg on him.
That's right.
Yeah, we had a good time.
So you guys were like,
we would do this sci-fi thing, and we were just like, "Oh my God, this is gonna take forever." Yeah, he was great. Yeah.
All right, so with all of the things that you do and all of the things in your life and in your world and how big your world is, how do you self-care? What is your form of self-care?
Is that an NC-17 question?
Well, if that's how you self-care, that's how you self-care. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life.
We're all here. Everybody does it. No.
I think my dog is doing it now.
Oh no. Really, what keeps me sane is I have to do some sort of exercise. I've always done something that exhausts me. I have to do that like every other day. If I don't, I'll go crazy. So that, and then animals, really.
Yeah.
Like I'll go. There's that little cat cafe down on Penn Avenue. I will go to the cat cafe.
First time the other day.
I used to go to the Animal Rescue League because they had you could be like a dog walker, but you could also be a cat carer.
No.
And they'd put you in the cat room and you'd pet cats. Now it was basically me and
I just have this vision of you.
3 women of a certain age, right? So it would be the ladies
it's like
and me.
covered in cats.
And I'd beat the cats. I'd just sit there for about a couple hours and just pet the cats. Yeah.
That's adorable.
Which kind of like my idea of heaven. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as long as you're in Pittsburgh, you can feel free to come over and get some puppy loving.
Puppies.
For my dags.
It's nice to walk into a door when there's animals.
No.
Yeah.
All right. So, real quick, we're going to close out with a little portion that I call questionable conversation.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just a bunch of random questions.
Randomness.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. And it doesn't have to be rapid fire. So.
Okay.
What album can you listen to from beginning to end?
X is More Fun in the New World.
By?
X. They're not the XX. They're just X.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite accent?
Oh God. From Newcastle, they call them the Brummies. No, the Geordies. The Geordies. A Geordie accent.
Geordie accent.
Yeah.
How does that go? Can you do it?
I literally can't do it, and if I did it, you wouldn't be able to understand a word I was saying.
Word.
Yeah.
All right. Who would play you in the movie of your life?
Sadly, what's his face? That bastard who stole every job I ever had.
Mariska Hargitay's husband?
No, he's a nice guy.
Because that's why for a minute I was confused.
Billy Crudup.
Oh, really? Billy Crudup.
Billy would have to play him. We're the same age, but
also, in case there's a movie about Paul Ryan, you could play him.
Oh God, please don't say that.
Because I swear to you, every time that man's picture pops up, I'm like, oh.
Only if I get to do something horribly humiliating or he dies horribly. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
We'll keep that in the back pocket.
Yeah.
Which of your 5 senses would you say is the strongest?
Smell, I think, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
What makes you nervous?
Oh God. People who walk up to me and go, "I know you were in," and they can't tell you, and that's when you go, "'Cause I wasn't ever quite famous enough." No, nervous, like people being unkind to each other in public situations. And I'm like, is a fight going to break out? That kind of thing.
Have you ever been in a fist fight?
Oh, yeah, sure.
That's right. You grew up with 2 brothers.
Yeah.
When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A reporter. No, I really wanted to be an athlete like not every boy, but a lot of boys do. I actually, if I could give it all up, I wish that I'd really trained as a swimmer. Like I could have maybe tried to, go for it as far as I could go. Because they tell kids, right? Oh, it'll only last till you're 28 or something. But my God, to be that good for just a little bit,
right,
would be worth everything. But it didn't happen.
Do you get to swim often now?
No, I rarely swim at all, but I miss it. Yeah.
What do you geek out about?
X albums. Twin Peaks.
Oh.
And I have to admit, it's really pathetic. But honestly, when I hear the beginning of the Star Wars theme songs in the theater, when I know that, like when I'm not ready and the trailer comes on, like when Rogue One, when that came out, I just wanted to stand up and cheer.
Really?
Because literally it was as if my dreams had come true since I was a little kid. I was like, finally somebody got to it, I mean, they're silly, but yeah, you can't, that little bone in you that you were.
Well, I mean, I guess you were a kid right in the right time when the original Star Wars came out.
I was 10 years old.
I barely remember when they came out, but I remember playing like Return of the Jedi, and all that crap, but I just never was like, in it like that. And so
it was like the internet starting. How about that? Star Wars like flipped the whole thing upside down. There was nothing. I mean, of course there were things sort of like that.
Okay.
But really, I mean, I was talking to Steven Spielberg.
Shut the front door.
Yeah. And I was
I
talking
like
to
how
him.
you just randomly.
Yeah. I was talking to him about Jaws, right? I met him, and I was like, I gotta ask him. I said, was the first shot in Jaws day for night? And he looks at me and goes, no one's asked me that. Yeah, we shot it in the day. And I was like, I knew it. He goes, I kept the camera as low as I could so you wouldn't see the horizon, so you'd think it was nighttime. And I was like, yeah, but there's one shot where he goes, yeah, you could see the. So we're geeking about his cinematography, which is ridiculous. And I said, well, what was it like when you saw the returns? And he said, no one. It was the craziest thing ever, because no movie had ever made that kind of money, and no one believed it was true. And he said, in that and Star Wars, when George and I made, when he starts saying George and I,
Right.
Those two movies, the returns, the cash that they made, the amount of money that they created, were so mind blowing that they changed the industry forever. And but there was some kind of weird, when movies after that have made more money, and movies since then have been more popular, but Star Wars was out for over a year.
In theaters.
Yeah, over a year.
Really?
Yeah. Whereas most movies, they make $500 million or $1 billion within 4 months or something, or on returns, right, on foreign sales. Star Wars made its money in American theaters. There were lines around the block for 8 months.
That was what it came out in, what, 75?
77.
77.
Yeah.
My God. Wow.
So yeah, something about that kind of mythology stays, which then feeds into interest in Roman myths, Greek myths, pagan myths. But it really all came from Star Wars, sadly. And that was the quick answer to that quick fire question, wasn't it? I got you, son.
Sucker. Do you believe in karma?
Yeah. Yes, but not in a Protestant way.
Okay. What is your favorite part of the human face and why?
Oh. God. Well, it's like saying, what's your favorite part of it? Sorry to use a sexist term, but the response will make sense. When people say, what's your favorite part of a woman's body? I'd say the way she walks.
Okay.
Because it's about rhythm and totality, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I guess for the face, it's the balance. But really, maybe the where the cheekbone hits, the jawline or the cheek. There's something like when you're sitting behind someone and the way they turn their face and you see
Interesting.
There's something about that I do love eyebrows. I love people with serious eyebrows.
Well, both of those...
People should not be afraid of eyebrows.
Both of those are the first answers to that question I've had yet.
Right.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes, but not that you talk to.
Not that you talk to?
Yeah.
Do you just kind of feel like there's a presence?
Yeah, I feel like they're haunting of some sort. I don't know what that is, but yeah, sure.
No, I mean, I totally fucking believe in that stuff. So I don't play with a lot of different things. They're like Ouija boards. I don't fuck around with them because I do not believe in disturbing spirits. I don't go into cemeteries unless I'm going to a funeral.
I think they're okay with it. I think they want you to. You just have to be respectful and no, I think if it's real, there have to be sort of good ones and then upset ones.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
There was one time I had gone into a store.
Mm-hmm.
It was like in Oakland, and I just I hit the threshold, and I immediately just felt this really bad vibe, and I just had to do an about face and turn around. That's the only time in my life that I've ever felt like that.
I think places carry things, and especially as an actor, a stage actor, really, or even a film actor. If you go into an empty studio, let's say one of the big studios at Warner Brothers or Universal Studios, you walk into those places and you can feel all the stuff that's been there.
Right.
Theaters especially, though. You walk into a theater, every theater has its own spirit, really.
Well, yeah, because so much emotion gets poured out into there. It's gotta...
Even, it's funny, every theater in the world, as far as I know, and even film stages to this day have the ghost light, which is they plug in a light and they leave it running 24 hours.
Interesting.
Yeah. Every theater in New York City, every theater you'll ever go to, when they finish rehearsal that night, they roll this thing out on a roller. It's a big light with a cage around it. They plug it in and everybody walks away.
I never knew.
It's never dark. Yeah.
Wow.
It's to appease the ghost. Swear to God. The ghost light.
Huh. What was your first job?
I was like a caterer. Like I served drinks and carried canapes around. My buddy David French, who was a great little entrepreneurial young man, at the age of 13 decided he could find a market for kids handing out drinks, making drinks, and handing snacks at people at parties.
Wait, how old were you?
I was 13. We were called the Dish Rats. And we put on little ties and shirts and had black pants and black shoes, and I could make a good gin and tonic. This was back when nobody gave a shit about this stuff, right? Yeah.
It's like I was making gin and tonics, selling cigarettes, whatever.
Pretty much, yeah. On the side, yeah.
Selling Lucy's. Yeah. Right there. It was not a big deal. Have you ever met Billy Zane?
No, I never have.
Damn it.
I wish I had. Okay. I love him in that Winters movie, that Nicole Kidman's first film. Plays her bad guy lover. It's good. Oh. It's creepy.
Yeah, I just have this weird obsession with Billy Zane. And
he's great in Titanic. What a great portrayal.
I love his smarm.
Yeah. Billy Crudup turned down that role. How about that?
So Billy Crudup is their nemesis. Bastard.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Yeah. And I can just honestly say that any of the roles that he has played, you would have been much better. No, obviously, I find him boring to watch.
Okay.
You never get tired of blank.
Hear that, Billy? I never get tired of people talking crap on Billy. No, I never get tired of cats, ice cream, jazz, babies, actually. I love listening to kids laugh.
Oh.
Like, I can be on an airplane, as long as they don't speak English. If they're just crying and making noise, I think they're adorable. When people start to talk, I can't stand it. I mean, not kids, but like if somebody's talking,
form sentences.
Well, let's say if I'm on a plane and someone's behind me talking in the middle of the night, I want to stab them. But if there's a kid crying, it doesn't bother me at all.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, kids cry. That's what they do.
Huh?
It's like wanting.
But adults, you can shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I'm like, have some. I don't want to listen to your miserable narrative. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you could describe yourself in one flavor, what would it be?
Purple.
No, I'm not going to accept that.
Coffee.
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 Why?
I don't know.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, David, thank you very much for hanging out with me and agreeing to do this. You've been a really good sport.
Thank you.
And you've been a really great guest. Is there anywhere that people can follow you on stuff online?
Who knows? Maybe I'll start writing this blog again. Right. I have an Instagram thing. I think it's called Clement Crawford or Clement_Crawford.
I think
which
it's
is my middle name.
Crawford _something.
Conrad, maybe?
Yeah, Conrad.
Conrad?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's my name, which I forget.
Wait, your middle name is
Crawford.
Your middle name is Crawford, not Clement.
Mom, that's my mother's maiden name.
Okay. Wow, we've got a lot of information.
Breaking into my credit cards now.
We got a lot of information. Yeah. Let's go ahead and sign off before you give up your social security number.
Nope, they're all named after my cats. Losers.
Suckers.
Sorry, Billy, you never get that.
All right, guys, thank you for listening to Down to Watch. You can follow us on Twitter at DTW Podcast and Down to Watch Podcast on Facebook. All episodes are on Libsyn and iTunes under Rugged Angel Productions, and Rugged Angel is one word. Until next time.
And one woman.